You just decided to read this sentence. Or did you? Your brain made that decision before you knew about it, before the thought even felt like yours. There is a moment hiding underneath every choice you make, where your body has already moved before your mind catches up. It sounds impossible. It isn't. In the early 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet wanted to answer one of the oldest questions in human history. Do you control your actions, or do you just watch them happen and take credit afterward? He built a strange kind of clock, a dot that spun around a circle every few seconds, fast enough that people could track it with precision. He wired volunteers up to sensors on their scalp, sensors that could read the electrical activity building inside their brain. Then he gave them one simple task. Flick your wrist whenever you feel like it. No pattern, no pressure, just whenever the urge arrives. And then he asked them to remember exactly where the dot was when they felt that urge. Here's what he found. Your brain begins preparing the movement before you consciously decide to make it. Libet called this early signal the readiness potential. It showed up on the sensors a full third of a second before people reported feeling the urge to move. Some readings showed it even earlier. Read that again. Your brain had already started the action, and only afterward did your mind seem to catch up and think, I want to do this now. You can feel how strange this is. It suggests the moment you experience as a decision might actually be a kind of headline, a summary your brain hands you after the real work is already underway. Like a news anchor reporting on an event that already happened, but delivering it as if it's breaking live. For decades, scientists argued about what this meant. Some said it proved free will was an illusion. Others pushed back hard. They pointed out that Libet's participants still had what he called a veto power. Even after the readiness potential appeared, people could still stop themselves. They could feel the urge building and choose not to act on it. Libet himself believed this veto was where real freedom lived, not in starting the action, in stopping it. But the story didn't end there. In 2008, a researcher named John-Dylan Haynes ran a version of this experiment inside a brain scanner, using a task where people pressed one of two buttons whenever they wanted. His team found something even more unsettling. Using the scan data alone, they could predict which button a person would press up to 7 seconds before that person felt they had decided. 7 seconds. An eternity in the language of a decision. Why would this happen? Why would your brain move first and tell you second? Think about how much your body actually needs to do without waiting for permission. Your heart doesn't ask you to beat it. Your lungs don't pause for approval. Your ancestors, moving through a forest thick with predators, did not have time for a slow, deliberate committee meeting inside their skull every time a shadow moved. A brain that waited for conscious permission before reacting would be a brain that got eaten. So evolution built something faster. A layer underneath conscious thought that could initiate movement instantly and hand the story to you afterward. Not to fool you, to protect you. This is where a psychologist named Daniel Wegner enters the picture. In the early 2000s, he proposed something called the theory of apparent mental causation. His argument was simple, and it reframes everything. You don't experience your intentions causing your actions. You experience a feeling of will, a kind of internal narration that gets stitched onto actions your brain has already set in motion. Most of the time, that narration lines up closely enough with what your body is doing that it feels seamless. You feel like the author, but you might actually be more like the editor, arriving just after the first draft is written. Wegner tested this with a clever illusion. He had participants control a screen cursor together with another person, both hands on the same mouse. When a hidden confirmation, a small sound cue, played just before the cursor moved to a certain spot, participants reported feeling like they had caused that movement, even when they hadn't. The feeling of authorship could be manufactured. It could be triggered without any actual control at all. Does this mean you are a passenger in your own life? Not exactly. Here is the part that gets missed in most conversations about this research. The readiness potential, the early prediction, the illusion of authorship. None of it proves you are helpless. It proves something more specific and more interesting. The self you experience is not sitting at the very top of the decision-making process, watching and directing every move like a general on a hill. It is folded into the process, sometimes ahead of the curve, sometimes behind it, but always